3, 2, 1. Good evening, councillors. It's my great pleasure to open the meeting this evening. I advise that the Mayor, Councillor Springfield, and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Radford, both apologies for the meeting this evening, as they are attending the National General Assembly of Local Government Conference in Canberra, and it's necessary to therefore appoint a temporary chairperson. So without further ado, can I please have a nomination for the position of temporary chairperson for tonight's meeting? Councillor Owen.
Thank you, CEO. I nominate Councillor Kowalczyk, please.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Moore.
And I second that nomination, Councillor Kowalczyk. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have a seconder for that nomination? Councillor Davies. Thank you, councillors. Do I have any other nominations? No? I'll now put those nominations to the vote in the order in which they were nominated. So all those in favour of Councillor Kowalczyk as temporary chair for tonight's meeting? Against? Carried. Congratulations, Councillor Kowalczyk. You can now take the chair. Thank you. That councillors may vote as they wish.
Thank you for your confidence, councillors, in appointing me as your temporary chair for tonight's meeting. Welcome to those in the gallery and to those watching from home tonight. We will commence the meeting with the following reflection. I would ask those gathered to join us now for a few moments of silence as we reflect on our roles in this chamber. Please use this opportunity for reflection, prayer or thought to focus on our shared intention to work respectfully together for the well-being of our whole community. Thank you, everyone. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional lands of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. As mentioned by our CEO, the Mayor and Deputy Mayor are apologies for tonight's meeting. Moving on to the minutes of previous meetings, can I please have a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous council meeting on the 16th of May? Councillor Moore, and a seconder, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Declarations of interest. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest for tonight's meeting? I note Councillor Ross has his hand up. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. I have a conflict of interest on the motion 1073 to be moved by Councillor Cameron. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, and we note that. Moving on to ordinary business. The Council conducts its meetings according to a consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. The items withdrawn for tonight's proceedings are as follows. Item 6.2.5, Special Charge Scheme, First Grenville Catchment, withdrawn by Councillor Owen. Councillor Owen, can you please move this?
Thank you, Chair. I move the officer's recommendation for that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. May I have a seconder, please? No, Councillor Ross is a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Mover to speak, please, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Tonight, it's a big meeting for special charge schemes, and I thought it was... I didn't really want to withdraw every item, but I wanted to talk to particularly this one that I withdrew, which is the special charge scheme for the first Grenville catchment. So all of them are great schemes, but this one I just particularly want to focus on. This report proposes to have a special charge declared to be part funded the construction of Neville Street, First Avenue, Steen Street, Spring Street, Hazel Street, Second Avenue and Grenville Road, Cockatoo. It follows Council's resolution of the 11th of April 2022 to communicate its intention to declare a special charge for this purpose. The Neville Street, First Avenue, Steen Street, Spring Street, Hazel Street, Second Avenue and Grenville Road Cockatoo catchment is included in the Australian Government-funded Sealing the Hills program. A recent survey of the property owners in the indicated roads in this catchment indicated 89.25% of property owner support to contribute towards the scheme from the responses received. Included property owners will receive a special benefit as a result of the works, including improved resident amenity, reduction in dust and associated health issues, improved drainage, less wear and tear on vehicles, reduced road maintenance costs and overall improved livability. No doubt this is the case. The preliminary estimated cost of the proposed works is $9,500,000, of which $1.8 million is proposed to be funded via the proposed special charge scheme contribution received from the included property owners. This will leave an approximate balance of $7.6 million to be funded by the Australian Government grant. And we do thank the previous government and we thank the incoming government that we believe we've got their support for this multi-year program. So it's good that they've indicated their support for this as well. I just wanted to highlight this. This is, it's been such a long history, particularly as Catchment. I want to recognise the community groups involved. Cockatoo 21st Century Roads Action Group. Amazing group of people from the Cockatoo area that back in 2018 thereabouts started a real strong advocacy campaign to improve the roads in Cockatoo. It was, it was a pipe dream type thinking. Using their strong advocacy, the $150 million over 10 years was received at the 2019 election. So I want to acknowledge those Cockatoo members of that community group for their strong advocacy. And this catchment was really the initial stimulus for what we've got before us. And I just want to acknowledge that. As the survey said, there was 261 properties affected in this scheme. We received 130 responses, about 50% responses, but with those responses, 89.25% of people supported the scheme. So that is clear indication that residents want to get on with this. So I will pause there and let other speakers talk to this very important item. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Ross, to speak.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Owen, for withdrawing these items because they are extremely important and they do make a big difference for people in their life. Special charge schemes are a wonderful tool that Council has at their disposal that can make funds stretch much further than they would have if Council had to build 100% of the funds that go into the roads. As an example with this, Councillor Owen pointed out the $1.8 million put in by residents can now be put in towards other people's roads to support this. A little bit of a history there on Council over, I think it was 20 years ago or 25 years ago, there was attempted by Council to have a special charge scheme in Cockatoo. And at the time, unfortunately, a lot of the residents didn't want to pay for the special charge scheme. So the percentage of people who supported it were much down on what you could go to VCAT to argue that we're going to put it through and they're going to have to pay. Come down the track 20 years later with a whole lot more residents there now, they put forward, and Councillor Owen pointed out these wonderful groups of advocates who got together to argue a really good case and say, look, we are prepared to, do something in this area. That began the advocacy on behalf of themselves and the residents. Council were going to invest and borrow money to put money into the hills anyway. And then we had a federal election where people promised to put more money towards it. So if you combine the special charge scheme money, the money by council and the money by the federal government as well, what we're going to finish up with was many, many more roads than would have ever been created if we had to pay for 100% of them. So congratulations to those people who lobbied and toiled for years to try and get this done, and the councillors from the Hills area who lobbied on behalf of those with inside here to try and get these roads done. I must say it will certainly benefit. I know our roads team will be much happier with more made roads in the hills, because in the past it's been this constant bugbear with ruts in them as you go up and down hills. It only needs to rain. It changes the whole dynamic up there. So I can't wait to see this happen. It'll be really good for the residents up there. And I must say, everybody in the end benefits, even if you don't live on one of those roads. Often the feeder roads that lead to your road will be one of those special charge roads that actually is made. Anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, for your comments. Are there any other speakers? There being none, I'll go back to the mover to sum up. Councillor Owen, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ross. I just remind councillors and council that obviously there is a resident contribution that's capped at $7,000 per benefit unit. Property owners will be offered the option of paying their contribution in full or by quarterly instalments over 7 years. Instalment payments will include principal and interest, with interest calculated at the declaration of the scheme based on council's borrowing rate at the time plus 1%. So, as I said before, really strong community support. I acknowledge CRAG 21, both present and past members of CRAG 21. I note that some members have left Cockatoo. They were heavily involved. I know the Wales particularly set up CRAG 21. They've left Cockatoo, but they'll be very proud that the catchment that they were, particularly were focused on in the early days is getting to that declared stage. I also want to acknowledge the Cockatoo Roads Consultative Committee, which was a committee which contained some members of that group, also other committee members, Rangers Ward councillors in its day as well. So in summary, that council proceed to declare a special charge over the properties listed in attachment 4 to part fund the construction of Neville Street, 1st Avenue, Steen Street, Spring Street, Hazel Street, 2nd Avenue and Grenville Road, Cockatoo, including a sealed road pavement, curb and channel, and associated drainage and auxiliary works generally in accordance with the concept plans included in attachment 3. Now, this will make a huge difference to those people living in that area of Cockatoo, and health issues also will be addressed with the limitation of dust, which is so important for these particular residents. So I move so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now put item 6.2.5, Special Charge Scheme, 1st Grenville Catchment, to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving on to item 6.2.6, Local Law 20, Open Air Fires Local Law, which is also withdrawn by Councillor Owen. Councillor Owen to move, please.
Thank you, Chair. I move the officer's recommendation, please.
May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Graham Moore. Councillor Owen, back to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Cardinia Shire has a significant history of bushfire, with records dating back to the early 1900s. Some fires of note are the 1939 Black Friday fires, 1983 Ash Wednesday fires, the 2009 Black Saturday fires, and the 2019 Bunyip Complex fires, with the impacts of climate change being increasingly felt in weather extremes and frequency. The risk of adverse fire outcomes is significant. This local law review project has generated significant interest from the community on what is passionate and somewhat divisive topic, including a record submissions through the community engagement process, and definitely it was a record and received so many submissions over the number of years that we've conducted this review. Community consultation indicates many landholders use burning off for garden property maintenance as a cost-efficient waste disposal and for inefficient fuel reduction. Some residents use burning off as their default option without giving thought to potentially more efficient, environmentally sustainable options. However, there is a need in a high-risk areas of the Shire for residents to have this option to burn off to prepare their property for fire in the interest of personal and community safety. And I think this local law does provide that balance. Local Law 20 strikes a balance between urbanisation, clean air and public amenity, and the need for burning off to be part of the solution for bushfire preparedness in those areas that face significant fire risk, alongside other methods of green waste disposal and utilisation of council's waste collection and drop-off services. So the new features of the Local Law 20 include new mapping that creates 3 new zones: urban and township, bushland and peri-urban, and rural zone. A new no-burn period in July each year, increased penalties with a focus on those who burn industrial waste, the power for the CO to suspend certain clauses within the local law to allow residents greater flexibility to clean up their property following a major storm or before the commencement of the fire danger period. New restrictions around burning off on days of poor, very poor, or extremely poor air quality as defined by the EPA. Exemption to allow cultural traditions by Aboriginal people to be practiced without a permit. Increased opportunity for residents in the bushland and peri-urban and rural zones to undertake fuel reduction through burning off. So there's new mapping. We'll see an increase in the number of properties unable to burn off without a permit, mostly around the growth areas of Pakenham, Officer and Beaconsfield. And this is obvious, we are a growing Shire. We've got our growth towns are growing, so we need a policy that reflects that urbanisation and close residential and low or high density residential. So we needed to update the policy to reflect that. But for those people that need to still burn in those areas, there is still large properties in the growth area. There's still an opportunity through the permit process. Long-term permits can be issued with quite significant ease. And there is attachments in the documents about council's policy about that, because that was definitely raised through consultation. So there was 3 phases of consultation, but I'll pause there. I'll let others speak on this very important topic, and then I'll summarise going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now move to Councillor Moore as the seconder.
Thank you, Acting Chair Kowazik. And thank you, Councillor Owen, for bringing this item up, withdrawing this tonight. I welcome this update. This update to this policy, very important policy within our community. And I know it caused a lot of controversy between residents and the council staff with this policy. But I think as we upgrade it with a great job done by our staff, I commend our staff for the consultation and action they've taken on this policy. Right back from it's August 2021 when we started the submissions, and we actually received 426, a record, as Councillor Owen was saying. And it's wonderful to have the community having some input into these policies, and they're positive. And I think from retrospectively looking back on what the staff have done in this place, where they've listened to the submissions and they've acted on those submissions. Because a lot of the policy points were the 25-metre rule was a big one, the distances from properties, and we've listened and we've changed that, so the policy is being rewritten to suit those concerns. And I noticed that at the submission time there was 4 additional submissions from Home Park Road. regarding the mapping, and I think the mapping will be revised and revised and revised until we get it right. I think as we change and the Cardinia Shire gets larger and we expand, the mapping will have to be adjusted as we go on these particular properties. Because the biggest thing that people don't understand, it is reduction of green waste and the open air burning policy are two different things altogether, even though they link them together, because they tend to think that that's the best way to get rid of green waste, but we beg to differ, because it creates smoke, and smoke creates unhealthy hazards to our health for our residents, and this has been pointed out particularly up in the hills, where they've got this. There's a group of people up there, and understandably so, who have a anti-smoke policy of their own, and so that's got to be addressed as well. We have a duty of care for all our community, whichever one way or the other. So I think the biggest issues were the days allowed to burn off were important, and we've noted that we were going to, in the policy, the initial policy was July and August burn-offs, and we brought it back to July only now. So therefore it's only 1 month of the year that we don't burn, and we can still burn off in public holidays. It's important, because people need to do it in those fire risk areas, and I know exactly what that means. I live in one myself. To know what it's like to have those risks minimised as much as possible, and this policy, I believe, addresses all those points. So this policy will come into effect on the 21st of July this year, so it's not very far away if it gets carried through tonight, if this item gets carried through by my fellow councillors. But I think it's at a place now where it's adaptable. It can be utilised by our community, and I think I'm looking forward to it being out in the public place and being used by our residents. Thank you, Acting Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll go to Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Just sort of putting this into some perspective. For those who don't realise, the Ash Wednesday fires made it all the way down to the Princess Highway in Officer, all the way down to the highway. If you have a look at the Black Saturday fires, it made it down to the highway in Longwarry and Bunyip, and they were concealing lines on the south of the highway. And I know through when Councillor Moore, who lived in the area at the time and was mayor, and I was the deputy mayor, when the Bunyip complex fires were on, I visited on his behalf to some community meetings up there. And for anyone who's been through a bushfire area not long after, it's basically like hell, but it's just not on fire anymore. Even the dirt goes on fire in some of the paddocks. It was just absolutely just devastating. And when you hear how it impacts people, and Councillor Owen pointed out that the amount of fires which are accidentally created by people well-meaning, but they just don't understand. And in fact, when the CFA and that do burn-offs, they actually do light fires and they contain them, but even sometimes they get away from them as well. So it is this really, really delicate situation we have. And for those who don't realise, we are the second most fire-prone area in the world, Cardinia Shire is part of, in the Ranges area, up around there. So we have this amazing delicate balance between residents wanting to do the right thing by burning off garden waste and things like that they might think is fire fuel, and the fact that we've tried to increase as well our pickup of this sort of fuel to take it to stations as well. But at the same time, we must give people the opportunity to do some burning off that is actually safe. So this is a scenario that every year council at the start of a fire season has the CFA, emergency management, and everybody come together and they talk about the fire season before it starts, and they show us scenarios on what it looks like this year and what could happen this year to you if the fires do start. And I think that's why council's always ultra cautious, because we can see what's going to happen if it all turns pear-shaped. So that's why it is so important. And Councillor Moore spoke about the fact that every year it's another journey that we go on, and it is a thing as times change, and and the dryness of areas change, and even, believe it or not, the rains that come when everything starts growing again so frenetically that it creates even more fuel to burn. So this is something that is extremely hard to make everybody happy. It will never make everybody happy, but I hope that everyone just concedes that, you know, it's to do with safety of everybody. That's the most important thing, and we will try and keep with the community on board and take them on the journey with us. And anyway, this will come up pretty much every year, our open air burning policy with local laws as things change. Anyway, I just thought I'd map it out so people really understand the significance of these sort of things. Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other speakers? I just want to briefly mention and give thanks to those councillors who have done extensive work in this space, and also to the officers. Owen Hardage and his team have worked very, very hard. Thank you so much. I'll now go back to Councillor Owen to sum up.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors, for speaking on this item. As I sort of indicated, there was 3 phases of community consultation. I do remember phase 2, where we got over 403 submissions, big, and 426 submissions overall was received. 95% of these were unique. The main issues that was raised, we know them very clearly, was the 25 metre rule. Prohibition of open air fires in July and August being overly restrictive, and prohibition on burns on certain days of the week being too restrictive. So through that submission period, we had people present to councillors on the 6th of December. I remember that day clearly, and definitely those themes shone through. And I do remember a number of property owners within the urban growth corridor spoke. They're on severe acreage, like 20, 30 plus acres in Officer and Beaconsfield, and they definitely was very clear that they sort of understand the reasoning, because of the urbanisation of Officer and Beaconsfield, but they want an opportunity to be in the position to easily apply for permits and to get those conditions that reflect their blocks of land. So I think with the permit policy, which is an internal document that council has produced, that will provide them comfort that they can get that. Could be in some circumstances an annual permit free of charge to address their fuel loads on their property. So that was really important. So with that phase, we changed the local law draft. So that's the reduction of the minimum clearance distance from 25 to 12 metres. That was a big one. Removing the prohibition of open air fires on public holidays, as mentioned previously before. Reducing the no burn off months to July only, not July, August. Amended the mapping for greater clarity, and other miscellaneous amendments to remove inconsistency or duplication. Phase 3 was a small localised one in Home Park Road in Beaconsfield. All respondents responded positively about including the north part of Home Park Road in that change of zoning. That had the CFA support as well. So we've amended the final draft to reflect those residents in Home Park. Further on, the submissions received by council, there was a strong theme for additional green waste support for residents. So I'm pleased with the draft budget that will be adopted next month. We see increased funding in that space of additional green waste support, and I'm hoping in the coming years we further invest in that, provide more opportunities for people to remove green waste for their properties as another option. So I look forward to those discussions in future budgets, listening to the community from that. And also another theme was community education that was clear in those submissions. Many of the submissions advocated for additional information from council around how to undertake a burn-off safely, additional promotion of alternative methods of waste disposal, and also other ways you can prepare your property for fire. So that is adopted, and in our document where we are going to promote the new local law, education will play a key in this new local law. Commencing later on this year, council will work collaboratively with the CFA, including local brigades, to deliver education sessions on how to burn safely, targeted to those residents in the highest risk bushfire areas. Council will also heavily promote the recently developed online learning training, which will be available for residents. So in summary, thank you for bearing with me. It's a very important item. So in conclusion, open air fires burning off is a controversial issue in the community, and Local Law 20 intends to strike a balance between the varied views while meeting Council's obligation in relation to community safety, amenity, and its commitment to address the impacts of climate change. The community consultation periods over a period of time, 2021 and 2022, provide an opportunity for residents to provide feedback with a record number of submissions received during the 2021 statutory consultation period. The feedback received during this consultation period directly helped shape this Local Law 20. Local Law 20 is designed to provide council and the community with the ability to ensure that the local law remains tailored to the needs of the community by taking ownership of the mapping, ensuring provisions balance the need for bushfire fuel reduction, healthy and clean air, as well as public amenity. So the council will roll out a comprehensive communications engagement plan to promote the Local Law 20 open air fires in the early stages, of the new financial year in July. So I also want to thank council staff. Also, want to finally acknowledge all the people who made those submissions, particularly. I know the Upper Beaconsfield had a strong advocacy committee, which commenced in 2019. Which came under the umbrella of the Upper Beaconsfield Bushfire Fuel Management Project. So I want to acknowledge them. They were heavily involved in many submissions. So I move so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. We'll now take this item to a vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Moving on, item 6.3.1. The draft Crown Land Hall and Recreation Reserve Policy, withdrawn by Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Council support the draft Crown Land Hall and Recreation Reserve Policy and seek comment from Hall and Reserve Committees of Management and DELWP. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. May I have a seconder, please? I see Councillor Ross. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Back to Councillor Owen to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be much briefer. The draft Crown Land Policy has been developed and applies to Crown Land Halls and Crown Land Recreation Reserves. Council is not the responsible entity for Crown Land Reserves, where it's not appointed as Committee of Management under the Crown Land Reserve Act. So these are very important community facilities and spaces, but I will list them: Bales Public Hall, Beaconsfield Recreation Reserve Committee, Bunyip Auditorium and Recreation Reserve Committee, Catchment Recreation Reserve Committee, Cannibal Creek Recreational Reserve Committee, Coralin Recreation Reserve Committee, Kirirup Rec Reserve, Officer Public Hall, Pakenham South Community Hall, Pakenham Upper Recreation Reserve Committee, Upper Beaconsfield Hall, Upper Beaconsfield Recreation Reserve, Tynong Buck East Hall, Tynong Public Hall and the Tynong Recreation Reserve Committee. So Council has drafted a policy which talks about funding and maintenance and so forth. And I think this policy is very important. Even though they're not coming under council ownership, they are used by our community, and I believe council has a role. For instance, Upper Beak has got a lot of Crown land, and we as a council needs to, have a connection, have a financial arrangement, have a management type conversation. So this draft policy seems to or tries to address those questions. So we are asking for the community to respond to this draft policy, provide their feedback for council to then adopt a final position. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now ask Councillor Ross as the seconder to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair. Many people probably aren't aware of the amount of reserves which are used by them in the community. And to be honest, most people who use the facilities, it really doesn't matter to you when you're playing. If you're playing football, who owns the ground you're playing on? It's the club who is the life of the reserve. And as a council, we have a responsibility, whether it's owned by the state government or whether it's owned by council, to do the best we can to make sure that the groups who use them get improvements to those grounds, and we stay involved in the whole process. This policy, where we didn't have really such a thing at the time, will go out as a draft. We're very interested in the community to see what they think, because quite often these have got reserve committees, which you can see in the report, most of them do, who need to know that they can look after these areas and maintain them. And the more they maintain them, the more they take ownership of them, and they feel like it's their piece of turf that they've looked after, and they take great pride in it. And in the past, they have taken great pride. And we need this policy to make sure that when we advocate, that we have some part to the whole process. And we have a policy that we follow, not just willy-nilly we support some, we don't support others, or the state government don't want to. We have a policy to follow. Anyway, I endorse this going out. I hope the community do get involved, particularly the ones on those areas, and try and inject what they think is good about it and what can be improved in it. Anyway, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other speakers on this item? There being none, I'll move back to the mover, Councillor Owen, to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ross. In the draft policy, Council will continue to undertake playground audits and building condition audits. This is because of the specialised nature of these audits. These tasks will be included in the funding agreement, clearly stating that Council is only responsible for conducting the audit, and any actions that arise from the audits will be responsibility of the Committee of Management. A 10% increase to the annual maintenance grants has been included in Council's draft 22-23 budget for Crown Land Recreation Reserves. This will support Committee of Managements to undertake maintenance that has previously been undertaken by Council and help to offset the cost of insuring buildings and other non-Council owned assets. So, in regarding to financial and resource implications, maintenance grants, the proposed annual Recreation Reserves maintenance contribution for Crown Land Reserves with Community Committees of Management in 2023 will increase from $191,000 to $210,000, reflecting that 10% increase. The total annual cost to Council of the 6 Crown Land Hall Community Committees of Management maintenance allocation is $10,000. So I do encourage the community, particularly those community members involved in these Crown Land reserves, to have their say in this policy. Personally, I would like to see more activation, more interest from the department in guarding these committees. Unfortunately, they're not heavily engaged, in my opinion, with these committees of management, and they need to take more of a lead. That's the state government department that's responsible, but Council has put out this draft policy for feedback, and I welcome that feedback. I move so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. We'll now take item 6.3.1, the draft Crown Land Hall and Recreation Reserve policy, to a vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. That concludes discussion of the items withdrawn. Are there any other items listed in the agenda that you wish to debate? There being none, can I please have a mover to adopt the officer's recommendations for the remaining items? I see Councillor Moore and I see second Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Moving on to councillor reports. Councillors, do you have any matters to report tonight? I see Councillor Carol Ryan.
Thank you, through the Chair, Councillor Kowalski. Just a few things. I know the residents always like to hear what we've been up to or what we haven't been up to. So some of the meetings I've been at is the Safer Communities Partnership meeting. It's a very important group, and we have lots of discussion about safety. We interact with VicPol and find out what the community's looking at and what their concerns are. So, and always relaying to the residents what is the best avenue for safety issues if they see something they're concerned about, who to contact. Social and affordable housing, that's always an important meeting too, because it's important about social and affordable housing for everyone within our community. So we're always in continual discussions in reference to that. The Together We Can Summit was on, and I went to the evening summit, which was on the 1st of June, and a few other councillors were with me, Councillor Ross, Councillor Radford, and Mayor Jeff Owen. Springfield, thank you so much. Sorry, Councillor Owen. The summit was absolutely fantastic. Phil Cleary was one of the guest speakers. He was absolutely fantastic, talking about the white ribbon and domestic violence, and how important it is for us to get it out in the community and have these discussions. It's very close to home for him in reference to he lost his sister, and he talked about it very intensely. A few of our councillors had to move back because he was very, very much there, but he was very, very passionate about what he wanted to get across, and everyone in that room was just so taken in by the conversation, and it opened up more and more conversations that we probably have never discussed before. So I valued that summit. It was worthwhile going, and I thank the staff for helping get that up and running. Elder Abuse Day, we had some Elder Abuse Awareness Day at the Culture Centre, and a few of the councillors were there as well. And it's really important that we talk about elder abuse, because it is happening out there. And what is elder abuse? What does it mean? What does it look like? I also did a presentation for Evergreen Retirement Village. We had quite a lot of residents there, and they were very, very active in asking a lot of questions. They were given a lot of information, and the purple ribbon I'm wearing is about Elder Abuse Day. So we'll be running that, I assume, probably every year to help our residents be aware that there is help out there and there are services. Community food strategy I went to. That was on the 16th at the Civic Centre here. It was a luncheon, and I had the homemade soup. It was absolutely beautiful, so thoroughly enjoyed it, and makes you appreciate different ways of menus and healthy menus for ourselves. I also attended a men's mental health forum, and I think they were a bit of a shock because there was one female there that was interested in going along. But it's really important that it's not just about men being in that group. It's about everyone being within the group and having an understanding of how men see mental health and how it affects them in their everyday lives. And if we can prevent suicide in some way by talking about this, then that's what was coming out of the forum. So that's all I've got to report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Are there any other councillors wishing to report? Yes, please, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. It's been wonderful to be able to get out without so many restrictions, that we can actually get out and participate in the community again. I must say the Pakenham Art Show this year was absolutely wonderful again. I must say the extension that's been done to the CCC in the last couple of years actually turned it into one of the primary usages that it was intended for in its original days, was to have an arts precinct in it. We finished up with a hall and an area there with a stage, but we didn't finish up with all that we wanted at the time because money can only stretch so far, I was told by the previous councils, as it was quite expensive to build. I must say, seeing the art show in the form that it was in is just wonderful to think that they can have a really, really class area to display the artwork, which is classy as well. So congratulations to all those people involved. They outdo themselves every year. And I must say, it's a really, really wonderful thing for people to come down and have a look. And it's free to come along. We visited the other day, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and myself, Emerald Lake Park. It brought to mind just what a wonderful asset that the area is and just how much we need to do in that area to maintain it, to keep it to what it is. I must say, for anyone who hasn't been there, it is a wonderful asset and you should go and visit soon. Council, we got to go and visit Gumbuya World not so long back, and which was great because I don't think we'd been there for an upgrade on everything that they've been doing in that space for the last couple of years. They made us feel very welcome. We had snakes around us. We had animals around. We got to pet koalas, the whole lot of it. They showed us their mini pygmy possum program, which was just about, these animals were just about extinct. And they were part with Healesville in a breeding program that started off, I think, there was only a couple of hundred left in the world. And now they've bred it into literally like a couple of thousand, and Gumbuya World has got that as part of their display now. So that was wonderful to come along. And for those who don't realise what an asset it is, it employs, I think, about 800 locals in that one place. So it might be the very starting place where a lot of young people get an opportunity to go and work as a casual worker. And listening to what they do and what they take all the workers through, I think it's a wonderful place that you can start off. For those who don't realise, probably most people realise I'm the delegate for waste. Recycling Victoria is going to be a new department which is being created as a peak body in Victoria. On my travels, on different hats that I wear on behalf of council, I've had a word to the interim executive officer of Recycling Victoria, and I did this at a forum on stage that I let him know that he needs to continue to engage with this group, with the community, as they have done in the past, and with councils. If they choose to just block it off like some departments do, where they just basically dictate to everybody what goes on, you don't get feedback from the community and you don't get as much buy-in. And for those who don't realise, 80% of Victoria's residential waste comes from the 31 metro councils. So that's a hell of a lot of waste. And we have a lot of power on determining what we do with it and how we can be efficient in this area and respect the environment. Also too, I attended with some of the fellow councillors here, Councillor Radford, the Mayor, Councillor Ryan, Councillor Cameron and Councillor Moore, the Aged Abuse Day, Elder Abuse Day. Sorry, I thought it didn't look right on the page. Awareness Day. I must say, this day is it really does open your eyes to the amount of abuse that's out there and the services that are needed for people to go to when they recognise something doesn't feel right. And I must say, the thing that I walked away with was the fact that the people who run these services really do care about the relationships they have between the people who in some cases don't realise how overbearing they are towards their family member or friend, and that they try and maintain a better relationship, but at the same time stopping anything that might be overpowering those people who are feeling very, very helpless. I attended the Emerald Library Extension, which the Deputy Premier and the Minister for Local Government, Sean Lean, were at. Sean Lean said that he's visited almost every library in Victoria, and he said that our library was probably the best library in Victoria at Emerald. I parochially encouraged him to come down to Pakenham and have a look at our other library down there, because I think that's pretty special as well. But he shared with me that the amount of one of the things he did share that people don't realise is libraries have become a hub for connectivity between the community. And during times when people were really isolated, often in a lot of particularly smaller towns, the library was actually the hub where people went to catch up with people. So that was really good there. I did go to one of the sessions. I know our other councillors all went to sessions for the White Ribbon forum that went for a couple of days and one evening. I went to the evening. I must say the Together We Can program is just a wonderful program that tries to engage as many community groups to come forward and go back and share with their groups in their own individual way the message to be aware of abuse and the fact that there are many services out there to help people. And lastly, I attended the Refugee Welcome Day. For any people who have attended these sort of days, they are extra special. These are people whose life is about survival. That's what it is. They share their survival story. And we are amazingly blessed to have these people, because not only do they share their survival stories, they share their love for Cardinia Shire and the fact that they love being here, and that's where they see their home. So I must say, and they are people who genuinely love the area, and they put in volunteer ways. So we can just encourage those people that we do notice them and we try and support them in any way we can. Anyway, that's all. I'll leave something for others. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, is there anyone else wishing to speak? I see Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Acting Chair. A lot of these events have been mentioned already, but I'm going to mention a couple of others. It's been a busy couple of months actually for us councillors out and about. The Cardinia Shire's Blokes Night Out was a fantastic event at the Deep Creek Reserve. The speakers there were fantastic. Bo Vernon, who is the in a wheelchair, who had an accident while playing football, is the coach of Phillip Island and does such a just an inspirational speaker. And this event was run and funded by the Bunyip Complex Fire Recovery Committee, and they did a really good job of it. It was really the cross section of the community. It was about mental health and mental well-being, and so it was a really great opportunity for us to get together with our community and be together. The Mayor was there, Councillor Springfield, and Councillor Kowalczyk was there also. It was really great night on the 18th of May. The other great event was the Mayoral Volunteers Night, where the announcement on the 19th of May, the announcement of the Stan Hempel Award, was my dear friend Tim Ahern, Rotarian, who's done such a fantastic job in our community. That name Ahern rings a bell around the Pakenham area, and what he did up in particularly the recovery of the fencing for the farmers up around the Larbatouche area was just outstanding. Other than there's many other things that Tim has done over the years, and I think a well-worthy recipient of that fantastic Stan Hempel Award, Tim Ahern. I also went to the art show, as mentioned, and the Together We Can program was really well done over a long time, and there was a lot attending there too. So it was really great to go along to that. I went to the day section. Went to all day. It was on, which was good. A week or so ago, they had the all the ice slide MND challenges, which I thought was really all over the place, and it was that just what a great cause to have, and the way the community get behind it. Neil Danaher is such a marvel of a man. It's hard to believe that he's still alive, and he can handle this, and he's such a leader in that field, you know. So I take my hat off to him, and I did. I actually went down the slide at Garfield on the Sunday, and They raised $20,000 there, the group, and it was run by led by the publican of the Garfield Hotel, Brad, and he did a fantastic job with the local butcher there, John Preston, my mate. And it was a lot of fun, a big crowd at Garfield, so that was a really great day. And the only other thing recently was I shared with Councillor Cameron on the day, which was on Sunday, was the Back to Bales Centenary 100-year celebration from 1922 to 2022. A great event, and they've been organising this for the last 12 months. Jane Coop, who was the leader of this, used to be a music teacher at Bales Primary School. And their committee got together, and look, it was just a really buzzing day at Bales. I had the horse and carts there and whatever, so it was really back to the future at Bales on Sunday, so it was worthwhile going to. But that's about all I've got to say for now. Thank you, Acting Chair Kowalski. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillors, any other matters to report?
Sorry if I stole.
No? I'll go to you, Councillor Owen.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, councillors, for sharing your activities. Last week I attended Pakenham Mazda as part of the Cardinia Foundation role that I have, and the Clough family, who's well known around Pakenham and Cardinia, they recently had their annual charity evening at the Pakenham Racing Club where they raised over $40,000, and as a result they gave 4 recipients over $7,000 in donations, and one of them was Cardinia Foundation. That will be distributed amongst the community in the Cardinia Foundation in the coming months or years. Also, they donated to Pancare, obviously a family story with Mr. Clough, who died from pancreatic cancer a couple of years ago, and that's why they have this annual fundraiser. So it was really great to see the Clough family, and they also donated money to the Casey Cardinia Make-A-Wish and also Frankie's Community Kitchen. So thank you to the Clough family on behalf of the foundation. On the 26th of May, unfortunately I couldn't be there. Council launched its Access and Inclusion Action Plan. It was a great day, attended by a number of councillors. I just personally couldn't make it for a family commitment that I was undertaking, but it was I understand it was a great launch, and it was a great whole of council response to that the action plan. So thank you to the staff involved, and I acknowledge we did have, and I've seen the photos, AFL wheelchair game match between Richmond and Hawthorn as part of the launch, and obviously Aligned Leisure was represented, but it was a really good day, a launch, I understand. On the 15th of June, I did attend the Cardinia Access and Inclusion Committee, another great committee meeting. The group was consulted regarding the Emerald Lake Park Master Plan draft that will be out for community consultation in the coming weeks, and also the Brunt Road Early Learning Centre. It was great to get their feedback from the group regarding those upcoming projects. And that's all for me. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillors, are there any other matters to report? Okay, moving on. Presentation of petitions. Councillors, do we have any petitions to table at tonight's meeting? No? Okay. Next item of business is notices of motion. Our first notice of motion, 1073 from Councillor Cameron, and we'll just pause as Councillor Ross leaves the room. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Cameron, can you move your notice of motion, please?
Thank you, Chair, through you. I hereby give notice of my intention to move a notice of motion that Council, either through its insurer or as a direct Council cost, reimburse Councillor Colin Ross upon the presentation to the Chief Executive Officer of appropriate supporting documentation in full for all the expenses incurred by him in defending himself against allegations made by Council resolution in the term of the previous Council that he had wrongly claimed travel expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Can I have a seconder, please? I see Councillor Carol Ryan. Councillor Cameron to speak, please.
In support of this notice of motion, during the statewide COVID-19 lockdown, the Council demanded that Councillor Ross provide detailed and extensive answers to questions it asked relating to his claims for travel expenses incurring in the preceding 4 years. The Council at the time engaged Justitia lawyers who worked with senior Council staff to investigate the allegation on Council's behalf. A subsequent second resolution of the previous Council referred the matter, including the material resulting from the work of Justitia lawyers and the senior Council staff, to the Local Government Inspectorate for further investigation. The extensive information prepared in defence of the allegations was also provided to the Local Government Inspectorate by Colin Ross and his legal advisors. In defence of himself, Colin Ross incurred expenses in the amount of $11,519.96. The Local Government Inspectorate requested additional information from the Council, which was provided. Following a complete and thorough investigation, the Local Government Inspectorate cleared Councillor Ross of the allegations and found that he had acted properly in accordance with the Councillor's expense policy and relevant provisions of the then Local Government Act 1989. The Local Government Inspectorate considered the matter finalised and closed. Notwithstanding the conclusive findings of the Local Government Inspectorate, the previous Council did not reimburse Councillor Ross for the expenses he had to incur to defend himself and his reputation against the now proven false and unfair allegations made by the previous Council itself against him. Thank you.
I'll now go to Councillor Ryan as seconder.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I reserve my right to speak on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Stephanie Davies.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Councillor Ross and his expense claims has been a very difficult matter for Council. And I believe Council incurred about $70,000 in costs when investigating his expense claims. There is a report and it is publicly available from Council's investigation. And I do hope that all councillors have read it or will read it if they haven't. It's uncomfortable and it is significant. For me, it was an easy decision, referring the concerns identified to the Inspectorate as a higher authority. To me, it is undoubtedly the right action irrespective of the outcome. The Local Government Inspectorate has not issued any public reports on their investigation. We don't know what they investigated or what was indicated. All we know is that they wrote to Ms Jeffs, our CEO, saying that they would not be charging Councillor Ross due to a lack of evidence. I don't have the document in front of me, but and I'm happy to stand corrected, but that's the only correspondence that has come back. Unlike Councillor Cameron's claims tonight, it has never been said that it's proven false. And every person here who is literate can read the report that Council had, which is the most complete information we have, and it was concerning. So other than the single-page letter addressed to Ms Jeffs, to my knowledge, the Local Government Inspectorate have not corresponded further on the matter. I would need to see what Councillor Cameron is referring to tonight in writing to qualify it and consider it before I proceeded with this support. The monetary value of the claim is not actually specified in the writing of the motion. Indications of $11,000 on legal expenses has been referred to verbally tonight, but potentially Councillor Ross could add to this expense claim as he saw fit, and without any review or further actions available, our CEO would be required to process payment. I'm very concerned that a perceived conflict of interest would arise if I tonight endorse a movement that has the CEO approve a claim, when we as the council employ the CEO. So if she does one councillor a favour or gives a councillor a blank cheque at a council's direction, how can we say that this is appropriate governance, and how can we... So with 100% certainty, I welcome discussions on said legal fees and ethics, and potentially at a later date, a new notice of motion, if required, pending supporting information indicate it is appropriate to reimburse Councillor Ross for the said expenses. But I would prefer the opportunity to confer to Council CEO and subject matter experts in responding to this matter. I first learned about this motion raised by Councillor Cameron on Thursday last week, and despite requesting it, was not provided with further information by any of the councillors seeking to support it. As councillors, we need to work together and we need to share information, concerns and discuss claims prior to when we're in front of the public at council meetings. And I believe this is something that we reflect in our code of conduct. So tonight, this motion is not in a place where I can confidently back it or support it. And for that reason, I think there's too much risk and I certainly will not be supporting this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Are there any other speakers? See Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I won't make this very lengthy. This has been around and round the tree for many, many years. And whilst I agree with the way this was delivered all those years gone by, wasn't what I'd call the nicest thing. Right on election it was. And so I thought that was completely unfair. Councillor Ross has got the opportunity to claim through our insurers the expenses that he incurred when investigating the claims by the local government inspectorate. And he has that. If we could see a claim that could be divided out of that on its own, a separate identity, and we could claim it against our insurance company, yes, that is available to Councillor Ross without going through a notice of motion. Like Councillor Ross really chose to go against this and put this funding and put this money towards the legal fees to go after this. And I think it was probably a mistake at the time. And I will not be able to support this at this point. The way it's written, I just will not be able to support this tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, can I ask a question to the CEO? Has there been a payment to council from Councillor Ross regarding this matter?
Through you, Chair, yes, it has. But I have to say it is not related to the legal expenses that are the subject of this notice of motion.
Sorry, CEO, but can I, does it relate to a claim of a councillor, or Councillor Ross, or an expense claim or anything like that? Is it related to the matter that was investigated?
Through you, Chair, yes, it's related to the matter that was investigated, but I guess my point is it's not related to the legal expenses that are the subject of this notice of motion.
Right, thank you, CEO. I think council had a legitimate and appropriate course of action in the previous council. The comments around the table to say it was false and unfair is, I think, a personal opinion. Reading from a letter which was reported at the February council meeting this year from the local government inspectorate. Outcome, the inspectorate conducted a thorough assessment of the allegations, including reviewing Councillor Ross's expense claim forms, relevant council, VLGA, MRRG policies and the full Justicia report. The inspectorate considered provisions of the Local Government Act 1989 in force of the relevant times relating to council's obligations in relation to the reimbursement of expenses of councillors and misuse of position. The inspectorate also considered provisions of the Crimes Act 1958 relating to obtaining property by deception. The inspectorate concluded that there is insufficient evidence of a breach of the Local Government Act 1989 and the Crimes Act of 1958. So insufficient evidence. Many people interviewed by, for instance, police, interviewed by other council for compliance matters, and people take their legal action or advice if they wish. And in a number of cases, there is insufficient evidence to warrant a prosecution at court. That doesn't stop a question being asked, an investigation being undertaken. Should not stop that process. it's the right of our legal system. So to then say that is wrong and then, pay us back for the question to be asked that council should reimburse some legal fees, I think that will open a Pandora's box regarding any compliance matter, any question of, any concerns raised. So I don't support this notice of motion. We've gone through a process, a legal process. The inspectorate said insufficient evidence to warrant a prosecution. That's the end of the story. Obviously, there was recommendations by the inspectorate, and council has since updated its council's claim for travel expenses form. That's how council responded to the report. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now go back to Councillor Ryan as the seconder to speak.
Thank you, through you, Mr Chair. Thank you to all the councillors and giving your vision. We all have different perceptions on this, and there were 4 of us councillors at the time when this accusations were made, and as Councillor Moore pointed out, it was around close to election time, and there was questions there, and there'll always be questions there because it's everyone's perception is different. Investigations by the local government, as we've already talked about, for Councillor Ross's travelling expenses, had found that there is insufficient evidence, no breach found. Therefore, I believe that we need to reimburse Councillor Ryan in full for the expenses incurred by him, $11,519, I think. I haven't got the exact amount. Defending himself against allegations made by council. He used this money, his own money, to have solicitors prove, after it going to council, after spending nearly $80,000 through solicitors in council to show that he had not breached then, and then it went to the inspectorate. And so he has spent money on defending himself that he has not breached and has been found not to breach. However, the local government inspectorate did identify improvements that could be made to the council's travelling expenses form. As Councillor Owen said, it has been updated and clearly stipulates how expenses are incurred, to include a logbook entries for the kilometres, finish start times of journey, as well as starting locations, which I think is a great improvement, because it's a long time coming for that, so it was a great recommendation. We need, hopefully, from now and in the future, that we be very careful of making allegations of a person without proof or without enough proof. Councillor Ross has been an upstanding, trusting and well-liked councillor for many years in Cardinia Shire. These allegations since last term, clearly this needs to be settled tonight so that Councillor Ross and the council can move forward. This has had a huge impact on Councillor Ross's mental health and well-being, as well as his family. Council spent nearly, well, I've already been through that. So I think I'll leave it there, that I will be supporting this because I do see a need for it, and hopefully we never go through this again, because it's been horrific for everybody, and the comments that were made in the local paper that were indicating, and there's no such thing in council as saying that the person is charged. It's either breach or not breach, and there's a difference. And I think people's reputation has been on the line here, and we need to be very, very clear on how we accuse or make accusations in the present, past and future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll now go back to the mover to sum up, Councillor Kay Cameron.
Thank you, Chair. This motion is about council's integrity and reputation. It's not about Councillor Ross's reputation. Just weeks before a council election and during the middle of the pandemic lockdown, the council moved a motion against Councillor Ross to audit and investigate his travel expenses. After council spending between $70,000 and $80,000 on legal investigation and hundreds of hours of paid staff managers' time, all funded by ratepayers, then referring it on through another notice of motion to the local government inspectorate for further investigation, Councillor Ross was cleared of any wrongdoing or breaches of any act of law or governance rules. As a consequence to Councillor Ross being cleared and no further action to be taken, expenses incurred by him must be repaid by council, either by council indemnity insurance or by council itself. And I am putting forward his legal fees of $11,519.96. The invoices clearly identify what they represent. And just for the information of those who don't know, in a court of law, to be found guilty, it must be guilty beyond reasonable doubt. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. We will now take notice of motion 1073 to a vote. All those in favour? Against?
Call it division.
Okay. Can I ask all those in favour to stand, please? I see Councillor Carol Ryan and Councillor Kay Cameron. Please be seated. Can I ask all those against to stand, please? I see Councillor Graham Moore, Councillor Brett Owen, Councillor Stephanie Davies and myself, Councillor Jack Kowaczyk. Thank you. I declare that lost. We will now ask Councillor Ross to come back into the room. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Next up, we have notice of motion 1074 from Councillor Carol Ryan. Councillor Ryan, can you move your notice of motion, please?
I would like it noted before I state this motion is that this notice of motion is in no way disrespectful for past or present deputy mayors. The motion is that council creates a report on the deputy mayor role in the other 79 councils. The report shall issue they have in their stats of whether a council has or does not have a deputy mayor position at present. If they don't have a deputy mayor, did they ever have one? And if discontinued, when did they cease to have one? And the reason why. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Can I have a seconder, please? I see Councillor Colin Ross. Back to Councillor Ryan to speak, please.
As I stated in the beginning, this is just a report to come back to council. And I have not put up a notice of motion many times in council in the 6 years I've been here. And many councillors have asked for reports to come back to council. And this is all I'm asking is, and under the Local Government Act, it states clearly the duties of a deputy mayor role is they must perform the role of the mayor and may exercise any of the powers of the mayor if the mayor is unable for any reason to attend a council meeting or part of a council meeting, incapable of performing the duties of office of mayor for any reason, including illness, or the office mayoral role is vacated. Questions from residents that I've had, and this is the reason why I brought the notice of motion up, is that do councils need deputy mayors? If wards are changed from shared wards to single councillor wards, which local government at yet has not made changes to adapt to the single ward roles? As councils could easily utilise the councillors to step up into the deputy mayor's position if being in that councillor's ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Chair. This is about asking for a report. This is what it's about asking for. I listened earlier to people say, oh, people might have to spend time doing it. Some of the expenses that councillors incur are absolutely out of this world. Council spends money on many things. Every time we go to VCAT, we spend probably $30,000 representing residents, even when we know sometimes we're going to give it a shot on their behalf. We bring in $100 million a year. A councillor here hasn't asked for a report before. She's been here 5.5 years and she needs some information to be gathered so that she can make an informed decision and present it before council. Anyway, I'm sure people will find some way to try and work out how they can not provide the money for something like this. Maybe it's because Councillor Ryan put it up. Who knows? Anyway, I hope they get support.
Are there any other speakers? I see Councillor Brett Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Ryan. I will be supporting your notice of motion. You're asking for information. I am a regular of asking for reports, not recently, but over my time, definitely. I do acknowledge your comments at the start before speaking. I acknowledge those regarding previous deputy mayors and the current deputy mayor, so I acknowledge that. Personally, I support the role. I look forward to seeing what other councils do. But in my time, we've had very busy deputy mayors, so I look forward to getting that information. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? I see Councillor Stephanie Davies.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Chair, bear with me just a moment. I also ask for reports as needed, and certainly am in contact with our CEO and her staff regularly to provide information to do my job. The role of a deputy mayor in Victorian councils was not actually specified in previous local government acts. So prior to November 2020, some Victorian councils had a deputy mayor, some had more than one deputy mayor, and others just had a mayor. And in the current Local Government Act of 2020, it says that all councils may establish an office of deputy mayor. So at November of 2020, 69 of Victoria's 79 councils had elected deputy mayors. And this information, it's all available on the Local Government Victoria website. Accurate information provided by the Minister for Local Government. Cardinia is a larger council than most and a quickly growing council. And based on this, I consider it's very reasonable to engage a deputy mayor based on our size, growth and what the legislation says. And also as a councillor, I consider that at Cardinia we are presently benefiting significantly by having both a mayor and a deputy mayor, and we're large, we're growing and we need to continue. Notices of motion, they serve to immediately change council's local laws. They're very serious, and tonight we're asking for a law to provide a report. It has happened before, but based on our training and the investment we make in councillor coaching and development, asking for a report is not needed with a notice of motion. It's something that you can use a phone call to enact. And I absolutely support Councillor Ryan in raising her first notice of motion and her efforts to develop as a councillor and a community representative, but I don't support notice of motions without being confident for the need for it. Councillor Ryan herself has read out what the deputy mayor role description is under the Act. I'm really concerned that there's not a huge amount of value in this request because it's for a report and that there is significant staff time and cost should it proceed. And I feel it's a bit of a misuse of our power and a bit of a misuse of the notice of motion process, enacting a local law and telling the staff to do something when the content of this report is for the councillor's benefit and not the community more generally. There's no reason that Councillor Ryan couldn't herself call each of the 78 other Victorian mayors and ask them for their history on deputy mayors, should she wish to know more about it personally. But it's not a job for the council to push onto our staff and a cost that the organisation needs to incur. Nor does the report have a valid community benefit. I want to also acknowledge our current serving Deputy Mayor, Councillor Tammy Radford. Councillor Radford is a very committed councillor, an intelligent and a kind person, and works diligently for the good of Cardinia. I would hope that she infers no disrespect and lack of support from this motion tonight. In comparison, I think she is in fact an excellent Deputy Mayor and that I'm lucky to work with her. So in summary, for the reasons I've listed, which is both the need for this information, the need to raise a notice of motion, and the fact that it is potentially a little bit of an abuse of power, I don't support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll now go to Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I'll be supporting this. I believe that my fellow councillor has been requested from the community for answers on a particular item, and this is the item that's been asked on about the Deputy Mayor. I can see the role of Deputy Mayor within our council, Cardinia Shire being a large council. I think I've expressed my view, my distaste of not having the Deputy Mayor in the building when the Mayor's not here, even tonight. But that's usually the role of the Deputy Mayor, is to be here to take over the office, and you're doing a fantastic job, Chair. But the Deputy Mayor would normally take over the position of Mayor when not here. And I can really see a great use of us having a Deputy Mayor within our role. And I don't think that's what Councillor Ryan's on about. It's about getting information to take back to a community to say this what it's about. And I think the use of the as I've expressed before, the use of the notice of motion to get information is something a little bit over the top. I think it's a matter of just an email to the CEO or to staff to get the information and be able to take it back to the residents involved. Would have been probably an easier way to do this and not so detrimental to staff time. But I'll be supporting this. I think it's only a report. I get that. We've had reports through notice of motions before, and I didn't like that circumstance either. But I can understand the reason for why, so I will be supporting this here tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other speakers? I see Councillor Kay Cameron.
Thank you, Chair. I will be supporting this notice of motion, and I don't think it's any one of us as councillors' decision to make whether it's over the top or whether it's unnecessary, and it certainly is not an abuse of power. So I think it's a necessary report, and we will all benefit greatly from the results of the report, and that's all it is. It's not. We're not here to denigrate or make noises about who's a good Deputy Mayor and who isn't. That's not what this is about. It's only about a report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I will just add a couple of comments myself before we take it to a vote. I'll be supporting this tonight as well. I do think there are perhaps more appropriate tools to deal with something like this in the future, and that could be a question to the CEO, which I know other councillors have used before. There's also various other avenues to take. But in the interest of you being genuinely curious, and I think it's a reasonable question to ask, I'll be supporting this tonight. So we'll take it to a vote. All those in... Sorry. I'll go back to the mover to sum up. Councillor Carol Ryan. I'm sorry, Councillor Ryan.
That's okay, Councillor Kowalski and Mr. Chair as well. Thank you to all councillors in your support, and thank you, Councillor Davies, for your opinion. I think it's always important the community sees that we all have different ideas and thoughts in how we go about things, and so I'll always value no matter whether someone agrees with me or disagrees, and I hope that people see that I do have respect for all councillors and all staff members. I know this is a little bit of extra work for the staff. I personally do not have the time. I don't work full time for council, so I don't have the time, and I wish I did, that I could make it easier, that I wasn't asking this of the staff, but I am asking, and my first notice of motion, I'm only asking for a report, so I don't see that it's out of the question. And I think too that I'm not abusing my position. I'm just using the position as a councillor requesting a report. And I think it's an interesting report to come back. I will look forward to the results of the report. I think it's more about residents bringing it to my view and what their thoughts are, opening up the question to me, to bring it to council, to open up the question to how can we utilise more. I'm not saying in this report anything about anyone else within our council. It is about all councils and the information coming back and how they utilise their deputy mayor. And if they don't utilise their deputy mayor, maybe they can get information from other councils in reference to the information that we get back from our report. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. We will now take notice of motion 1074 to a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving on to community question time. We have 2 questions received from Mr. Tony O'Hara. I note Mr. O'Hara is in the gallery tonight. I will refer the first question to the General Manager, Customer, People and Performance, Jenny Cicluna, to read and answer the question. Please, Ms. Cicluna.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start by reading out your question, Mr. O'Hara. For my question, I reviewed Council's Community Engagement Policy 2021 to 2025 version 2. VAGO's public participation in government decision making, and the International Association for Public Participation IA2P resources. Consultations such as the Eaststone Reserve User Survey and the Woodlands Avenue Catchment Cockatoo are suitable for IAP2 consult level consultations. Other consultations, such as the Upper Beaconsfield Reserve Facility upgrade and the Cardinia Creek Regional Parklands and the recently closed Cardinia Life, are more suitable for the IA2P involve or collaborate level of consultation, as people are stimulated into thinking when ideas are being discussed face to face. So your question is, Mr. O'Hara, when is Cardinia Council going to revert to live forum-style consultations, ranging from informal discussions to formal community meetings, focus groups, workshops, as well as online feedback still being used where appropriate, as per the Cardinia Council Community Engagement Policy 2021 to 2025 version 2. Mr. O'Hara, my community engagement team have supported me with an answer. They have gone into some detail, and so please bear with me as I answer the question. But thank you for your question, and thank you also for your interest in how Council undertakes its community engagement. We acknowledge that during the pandemic, our community engagement activity was necessarily restricted to online activities, mostly through online questionnaires and surveys. Where possible, other features of the online platform were used to help generate ideas and promote public questions and sharing of those ideas. As the restrictions have eased, we've started to cautiously return to face-to-face community interactions alongside our online engagement opportunities. Our approach is to return safely and appropriately to complementing our online engagement. activities with face-to-face activities. As you've noted, Cardinia Shire Council uses the IAP2 spectrum of public participation as the core model for its engagement activities. And as you know, this spectrum depicts 5 levels of increasing influence that public can have on an outcome or decision. In line with our community engagement policy, our engagement planning takes into consideration a number of things when deciding which is the most appropriate form of consultation or engagement for each particular subject matter area. We consider what's being considered. Is it a policy or an issue? What are the objectives of the engagement, the timeframes, the resources that council has to undertake that engagement, and also the levels of existing concern or interest in a topic as well. We also recognise that members of the community have different level of interest in council projects, programs and decisions. Some people like to contribute in different ways. Some prefer the convenience of being able to respond online in their own time and around their day-to-day commitments. Others prefer to meet in person, share ideas, opinions and debate their differences. We also recognise that members of the community are affected differently by council decisions. So we do use the IOP2 spectrum to help us to consider what levels of engagement suit which projects, and we'll often use different levels for different community stakeholder groups. So, you know, one group might be deeply involved in an issue, so we do the higher levels of the IOP2 spectrum with them, but go out to broader community with a lower level of the spectrum. The engagement team offer a little bit of explanation, or I suppose commentary, about the examples that you offered in your preamble. During the Cardinia Life project, there were multiple opportunities to be involved in face-to-face discussions with others. We had 4 focus groups and 3 drop-in sessions, as well as the online opportunity. We did notice that the take-up of the online opportunities were greater than the in-person events, and we were pleased to be able to offer a range of things for that particular consultation. We're just waiting now for the final consultation report to come through from the consultants that were assisting us with that one. In relation to the Upper Beaconsfield Reserve Facility upgrade, our recreation team, by invitation, has been collaborating with the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning Committee of Management. This is one of those situations that Councillor Owen mentioned earlier around the Crown Land Reserve. So that Committee of Management has a role in signing off, and so we have to also be led by their wishes with regards to how they choose to engage about their particular project. So when we're not the land manager, it does add a little bit of complexity, and it's just another consideration that we have to do. The Cardinia Creek Regional Reserve Parklands was similarly a state government project, and it was part of the statewide suburban parks program. So again, state government actually ran that one, and we promoted it to try to assist them in a partnership approach to get as many people involved as possible. There was an online survey, but there were also in-park surveys, community meetings and special interest group meetings as well. So I suppose in summary, our community engagement policy acknowledges that direct input from the community does enhance council's decision making by making it more relevant and transparent. It also outlines council's commitment to ensuring that community is as well informed as they possibly can be on major issues, plans and projects. And in short, yes, we're trying to get back into more face-to-face and a wider variety of engagement opportunities for our community, but it will depend on what it is and all the rest. The team wishes to thank you for your question. They love it when engagement is highlighted, especially in forums such as this. They also offered to come and meet with you, or even the Lakeside Residents Group, if anyone wants to know a little bit more about our engagement practices here at Council. They just ask you to reach out to me and we'll organise a time for that to happen. So thanks again for your question.
Thank you, Ms. Cicluna. The second question from Mr. O'Hara I'll now refer to the General Manager of Infrastructure and Environment, Mr. Peter Benezik, to read and answer, please.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for your question, Mr. O'Hara. I'll read it out as tabled. Council regularly advocates for the needs of the Shire. Advocacy includes seeking alternative funding or grant opportunities, legislative or state planning control changes, regional infrastructure or investment, and increased or improved service delivery from the Australian Government, Victorian Government and other sectors. There are a lot of people getting damage to their cars from potholes on council and Vic roads. Many have no idea on how to get the correct responsible authority to notify them. The question, would council consider advocating to Vic roads on issues of damage to the Vic roads such as potholes on behalf of the residents when they complain to council? Thanks, Mr. O'Hara, for your question, and also thank you for acknowledging the work that Council does in terms of advocacy. The response, Council registers inquiries regarding road damage on state-based roads to Vic roads as raised by the road user. Whilst Council advises the road user to source the application forms via the Vic Roads DOT website to make a claim for vehicle damage sustained from potholes on state-managed roads, Council has no influence or ability to change outcomes in relation to specific issues or resolve claims between an individual and another authority. This is a matter remains between the road user and DOT. Council continues to encourage road users to contact Vic Roads and DOT directly with individual inquiries so they can be appropriately directed to the correct contact within Vic Roads for actioning. Council advocates to Vic Roads and DOT in a number of forums for areas and of highest priority and concern that require attention based on community feedback. Council's advocacy to the State Road Authority for this priority service is ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benezik. That concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you for your interest. For those interested residents, I advise that we will be holding a special council meeting next Monday, the 27th of June. The sole item of business for this meeting will be to consider the council's budget for the forthcoming financial year. I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.